And welcome, everyone. Welcome to Woburn Church. And we want to say up front, no matter what your socioeconomic background is, no matter what your ethnicity or your race, your sexual orientation or your gender identity, no matter if you're from this side of the tracks or the other side of the tracks, or this side of Lexington or the other side of Lexington, from the south or the north, from the right or the left, we're a people of welcome, and we are glad that you're here. This is a good day, and for me, this is just wonderful to get to be with you all. And so online and here, so great to be with you. Derek is going to sing some for us, and you know, we're not doing words, are we? Mm-hmm. We do music kind of differently that way, more like a coffee house. Just be here, be present, enjoy, sing if you want, but be a part of it in any way that your heart wants. And no need to do anything except just be present. So, thanks, Jared.
Before I do them, the second one specifically has some words, so I know we're not foreign to that here, but just for everybody to know that. And these are songs that, literally before we even started the service, I was like, oh wait, these songs are songs that I was listening to when I first started to feel okay about doubting God. And I credit that to a very special guy that passed from COVID a couple years ago, but he was my youth pastor back in the day, and he was not afraid to push the edges of what you were allowed to say to God. And I thought that was really cool. So the second song is the song that I heard then, but the first one is, I think, will maybe hit home for some of us, because it's about a God who would make us to love things and then tell us to not love those things. So hopefully the words will connect with you.
Say that it's best for me, but tonight
you on just like a wedding dress, and I run down the aisle, run down the aisle, and I'm a prodigal boy going home. Put you on just like a raincoat, and I run down the aisle, run down the aisle, because money cannot buy a husband's jealous eye. When you have knowingly deceived his wife. 'Cause I am a whore, I do confess. I put you on just like a wedding dress, and I run down the aisle, run down the aisle. I'm a prodigal going home. Put you on just like a rainbow, and I run down the aisle, run down the aisle. Oh, I am a whore, I do confess. Put you on just like a wedding dress, and I run down the aisle, run down the aisle. And I'm a prodigal going home. Put you on just like a rainbow, and I run down the aisle, run down the aisle to you. Lord Jesus, we thank you that you are good enough to let us be who we are, and not just let that happen, but celebrate when it happens. I thank you for these songs that got me thinking. And thank you that no matter where we're at, that it doesn't really matter where we're at. Whether we believe, whether it's one of those days where the last thing we want to do is believe in anything, that you know, because you're with us, that it gets really, really complicated sometimes. We thank you that you're there with us in it, and you're not out of it waiting for us to figure things out. We thank you that you can put us in Jesus' name.
Thank you so much, Derek. And again, just welcome to everyone. Great to be here with you. So excited about our talk today, and about just the community of being with you is such air to my lungs. You know, it's like breath to my heart just to have to be with you all and to get to talk in these ways. As always, we have a mic up here, and that you can chime in at any time you want. We are in week 3 of a 5-week series, talking through just not the whole book by any means, but this book, Faith After Doubt, and talking about some specific parts of it. And just the announcement part, I think I forgot to announce this last week. Did we talk about it?
Yeah.
Okay. So anybody that does want to be a part of the book study, we're doing it, or the book club, we're doing it Monday nights at 6:30 at Panera. We had 9 of us there last week, and I think there are going to be more this week. So we'll see how much room we have, but there's always room for anybody that wants to come. And it's on this book. So last week, week we talked about stage 1, so this is 4 stages.
Right. Simplicity.
Simplicity, do you want to give us an idea of what that was?
Well, I mean, simplicity is pretty self-explanatory, but he breaks it down into stages where it really into ways of thinking is probably the best way to put it. But simplicity would be think of it more black and white. This must equal this, that must equal this, and that's kind of the place where other faith traditions kind of stay. It has to be a literal death on the cross, because it has to atone for sins completely to prevent you from going to hell. That kind of thinking. That's really the simplistic way, and there's no real conversation around any kind of nuance in it.
That's a great way to say it. There's no conversation. So here's how evangelism works. You strike up a conversation which is designed to entice somebody into believing your way. That's what that is. It's not an actual conversation of trying to figure out truth. It's me trying to share my truth with you.
And if you don't believe that truth, you're not part of the tribe anymore. In fact, you're dangerous, and you shouldn't be consulted with.
Yeah, we, for a lot of that, part of that tribe, we are the enemy.
Yes.
We are the ones that are the false teachers and trying to take the little lambs away from the truth. And you can find some verses like that with the sheep in John, maybe 10 or 11. And the hired hand runs away, and then the predators come and get the sheep, and that's us.
Yeah, this is us to take one verse out of one book with no context whatsoever and form whole ways of thinking around it.
Yeah, in fact, if you read it in context, there's a particular verse that says, where Jesus says, I have other sheep that are not of this sheepfold. Well, that doesn't compute.
Yeah. It doesn't work.
That does not work. So, if last week was simplicity, this week, week 2, stage 2, is complexity. Now, the thing about these stages is, these are not stages that you necessarily grow out of. Some of them you do grow sort of away from, but other ones are stages that you keep with you. And there's a part of this, the complexity part, that we keep with us no matter where we go in our spiritual journey.
Yeah, especially when it comes to people-to-people interactions. Because we're so wired for connection, there's always going to be complexity from human to human connections. Like, my relationship with you is different than my relationship with Derek, which is different than your relationship with Derek. So there has to be complexity to a degree.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, so for the stage 1 people, I think almost all fundamentalist religions are stage 1 religions.
For sure.
Because by definition, they are, this is the one truth, and there is no other truth. And everything is a binary decision, right or wrong.
Right. And they even say that, like, they're like cardinal phrases, like, you have to think correctly or think wrongly.
Oh yeah, right.
That's their favorite thing.
So this stage 2 is this idea of complexity. But as you would guess, the label of the stage is complex. It's not just, thinking complex, thinking in nuanced ways. Like, all of us certainly would be for that. And maybe that's where we end. But there's another part of it that is the pragmatic part. And so many of us who are evangelicals would have come to this stage 2 through churches that were about winning. So if you can win enough other people, pragmatically, this works. And so it's not as belief-centered. You get to have choice in what your belief is within certain parameters.
Right.
And so the goal isn't to always have questions. The goal is just to figure out in a more complex way what your answers are. And that's the big fallacy, is that it still is an answer culture. It's just there are a lot more complexities in getting to the different answers. So here's some descriptors of stage 1 and stage 2. Perception, dualistic in simplicity, pragmatic in complexity. Binary for stage 1, right or wrong. With stage 2, it's success or failure. So, this was I think we're allowed to see these names. This is the Mars Hill thing. So any of you have seen or listened to the Rise and Fall of Mars Hill. And I saw it I've seen the churches I've been involved in too.
Yeah.
How could what he's saying be wrong? Because look at the fruit that it has produced. Here are all of these people that are now coming to our church. Lives have been changed. People, marriages are put back together. All of these good things. If there's that kind of fruit, pragmatically, what he's saying must be true and right.
It's like they go too far with it because you don't start with thinking. That's the problem. That's the flaw. It's like we are human beings. We belong here. We belong nowhere. We belong everywhere. That's the concept from Maya Angelou. And with that means
just the Maya Angelou, we can do hard things. Podcast. Am I the right person?
No, that's Maya Angelou.
Never mind.
She does all
that. Charlie, can you listen?
Yeah. I'm forgetting her circle, but this was in an interview with Oprah that she was doing it. Yeah, no, you're fine. No, you're totally fine. We can do hard things as Glennon Doyle. I also advise that. Talk about complexity. Her story also fits really well. She was married to a man, and he was having an affair, and she fell in love with a woman. So, cool story. And she used to be a fundamental Christian, would be completely where you and I used to be, and is now completely not.
Yeah.
But the tricky part in this is we have to really focus on belonging so that we can actually do hard things. We have to focus on recognizing that we're separated, we as humans, from our faith practice. There's an integration piece to it, but if you're only focused on the thinking part of it and not belonging to yourself so that God can be in you and with you in it, you miss out. And that's the real tragedy of simplistic thinking.
Yeah, right. Well, this second stage, many of us would have been in a wider evangelical church where it was a pragmatic sense of, if this is working, it must be right. Here are other, in simplistic, in stage 1, there's authoritarian leaders, what the leader says. And this is, by the way, different in different cultures.
Right.
So certain cultures have a much stronger sense, there's no problem saying this, the Latin culture and African cultures in general, sub-Saharan African, have a very strong bias towards authority. So the lead pastor basically runs stuff. Not so much in our culture, and in the second stage, not that. In the second stage, the leaders are coaches instead of authoritarian leaders. And also, what I'm giving you is a very, simplistic account of these. So you've been in churches where it's mainly stage 2 pragmatism, but there's a very authoritarian leader.
Yeah.
That can absolutely be. But in general, this stage 2 is more of coaches. And, I don't know if you all know about the idea of the spiritual director. And so that's a very common thing in what I would think of as stage 2 Christianity. And in that, there's an older, wiser person. And I get that. I mean, there's a lot of it that makes sense about it, who's more like a coach. And I'm really interested in not going down that path for myself, as either being a spiritual director or being under a spiritual director. I don't know, there's something about it that scares me. I don't know, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it can work, right? Like what McLaren and Roar do.
Would he call him the spiritual director?
He calls himself pastor emeritus. So basically, he's just there, available, and just to the people, so that he took a vaccine because of his cancer, and he's still involved to a degree because they use a lot of his work for it. So I think there's a realm where it works, but it's complex, right? And they're probably making it up as they go and kind of figuring out his role now that he's transitioned. And I think it's the not having to. They probably don't have a contract for him, so it's probably not set in stone. What is probably the way around the complexity of it.
Right. I'd be interested, if any of you had leaders that were like personal leaders that were pretty authoritarian, like, I want you to do this, and then this is what you do next, and I just interested.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, okay. So especially in your cult situation, that's almost by definition a part of the cult. And we were very involved in evangelical churches that were along those lines. And even if they were coaches, they would have had definite opinions about what you should do about something.
Yes, definitely.
Part of mine was we had to ask about our vacation times.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that one today.
Like,
Man.
you needed to clear with your leader when you were going to have your vacations to make sure it worked for the church. Boy, when I say it now, that sounds really out there.
It kind of hurts.
Yeah.
Like as a member of the church?
Mm-hmm.
Well, so if you agree to be under the leadership of a coach, that coach can really, everything comes under their leadership. And because then that coach is under the leadership of another coach who's under the leadership of someone who gets eventually to the lead pastor, who theoretically is under the leadership of other people. And so there was a lot of that.
We all know that the lead pastor hears directly from God, though, right?
Oh yeah, I hear directly from God. So if any of you have questions, just contact me.
Yeah, ask John, but don't ask me.
And I will get out my Ouija board and I will help you know the right answer.
A Fiji board?
And the right way to go is my God is not dead. Absolutely. And to be fair, the early disciples cast lots. Pretty much a Ouija board. Just saying. All right. Key values, simplicity, being right, clean, good, obeying authority, staying faithful to tradition, remaining loyal to the in-group. Loyalty is huge in simplicity.
Yes.
It also can be huge in complexity, depending on, because, so in complexity, one of the primary goals is unity. And by unity, it means uniformity.
That does not work here very well.
We're not great at that.
Not at all.
So you believe something else? Good for you. We're for you. Just to be clear, in case that was a question. Assumptions. This is really interesting to me. In simplicity, everything is knowable. So the phrase we use is, we don't want to live out of the arrogance of arrival, but out of the humility of only having just begun. So when I made that statement up, I was in this stage 2 area, and I knew that the simplicity thing was not right. And I was starting to question the complexity part, not the complexity part, but this this next stage, which is this pragmatic stage of if it works. And so I recognize the arrogance of revival. And we see that if you've been to a college, you almost certainly have seen it in some professors. They have arrived, they know the answers. All knowledge is knowable. At least everything that's important.
There was a heresy back in the day.
What was it?
Gnosticism.
So, yeah, use that one. So, Gnosticism, by the way, Kristen, that word has come up in the TV show that we're watching these days. It's the Gnostic thing. So, tell us about Gnosticism.
Well, do you want the simplistic answer?
Yes, I want the simplistic answer.
They were basically a group that believed that, it's hard to kind of nail down, but the spiritual was the only thing that mattered, and anything physical was like, almost wasn't a reality in a sense, but like, they would have said that there is a certain point of being able to know literally everything, and like that it was accomplishable to know all things of spiritual things.
And Gnostic means to know.
To know, yeah.
And so, for the Gnostics, what you did in your physical body didn't matter because that wasn't the real thing.
It was declared a heresy by one of the councils.
And so, yes. So there was the whole movement of Jesus was just spiritual because you couldn't have a physical body because the physical body had all this evil in it.
Essentially, he was an alien.
And so, yeah, an alien, that's right. And so the Gnostics didn't believe in a literal resurrection of the dead because that would imply a body that was good. So anyway, that idea of knowing you can know, and it's the secret, the Gnostics believed in the secret knowledge. For the complexity, everything is doable or possible. We just have to do it the right way, and things will, everything, we can do anything. Oh man, I was thinking of that idea of success. So church group growth movement is a lot out of this second stage idea, where we can win, we can get more people than the neighboring church, and our church can become the beacon that God meant it to be, unlike your church. Sucks to be you. Authority figures, leaders who know and reach the right answers, God-like, in simplicity, and in stage 2, coaches, which can help us succeed. In stage 1, it's good and evil. In stage 2, it is winners and losers. So, I hope that gives you sort of a sense, at least, of this stage 2. It's not about getting it right. In stage 2, it is about getting it right, but for us, we would say, it's not about getting it right. And so, you talk a lot about doing the next right thing.
Yeah. Yes.
So what does that mean for you?
Yeah, so I guess I have to be very, very vulnerable with this. So how can someone who sells themselves to something, like I did evangelicalism, specifically for 20 years,
Me too.
and then find myself in an affair situation? How do you get out of that? How do you go through the complexity of doing this very bad thing that's complex, because it's not all me, but it is that I have a role in it, and then you have to get out of bed and you have to decide what your next is. And then to add even more to the complexity, this all happened because I was told I could not be queer. So we have down 2 layers of complexity in something. So how do you do the next right thing when you're told you can't be something, you do something bad yourself, you want to get out of both of these bad things that you're feeling now. How do you do it?
That's complex.
That's complex.
And for you, it took you to the third stage
Right.
because everything crashed.
Correct.
And the problem with the stage 2 is, for most people, it eventually does crash.
Right.
Because the marriage fails, or you have the affair.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing, stage 1 is so engrossed in sex. Like, sex is, well, sex is money, but especially sex is the one thing that is really harped on in stage 1. So by that, what I mean is shame.
Yeah.
And so many of us were teenagers at one point. And when you're a teenager, I don't know, I shouldn't speak for everybody, but for me, I had many hormones in my body that were raging, and I was trying to figure out what everything was. And the church's answer to it was, we'll just have the appropriate amount of shame. And if you can feel enough shame, then you're okay.
It was kind of like growing up in the 90s, another angle, but this was more societal than church, was we had no nuance whatsoever body types. And so people that were heavier, the answer was shame them so that they lose weight. That would be the simplistic view. It's not that simple at all. I know multiple people who, they eat certain things and it turns to sugar.
Yeah.
And other people can eat those same things and it does not do that. But the simplistic view is eat less, exercise more, lose the weight. If we shame you enough, you'll look good.
And so judging and shame go hand in hand. You shame because you have judged, and you judge correctly. That's part of the simplistic idea. In complexity, shame still is very there. It's still very much a part of the culture.
Right.
I remember one of the AWC albums, I think it was the first gay album. Yes, Mountain it was. The phrase kept coming up, we don't want to live in shame. Like, I don't remember how many times, but the word shame kept coming up in that. And it occurred to me, oh man, the writers of these songs, my students, are battling with shame all the time. I wonder if that's partly my fault. You know, whose fault is this? Well, it's the system of stage 2.
Right. Because the best definition of shame I've heard is it means you are bad. Like, that's the best definition of shame that I've heard is you are bad.
That's right.
And that's what a lot of people think. The complex part is it's for various reasons that they think they are bad. Shame triggers are something that we'll have to work on our entire lives. Like, there are times when I eat certain things, I will be triggered for just doing it.
Yes.
And so it's complicated because you can do something so simple like just eating, which isn't a bad thing, and you're triggered by it because of what you chose to eat. And it can really sneak in there and shame you like something.
Thank you. I just wanted to say, so yeah, when I was a teenager, I lived in a suburb, and let's see, so we had a neighbor next door, and she had a lot of dogs, and one time, she asked me, I think directly, and didn't tell my mom, if I would watch her dogs for like 2 days, and obviously being a teenager, going to a private Christian school and everything, there's lots of shame. But long story short, she gets back from the trip, and comes over to pay my mom to give me the money. And my mom was like, hey Clay, were you feeding dogs this weekend? And I was like, oh. And of course I was like, well, I feel terrible. But then there was this other part of me that was so burned out on shame, I almost didn't even care. I was like, they're not dead, whatever. So that's the problem with over-shaming. You know, if they had not, I probably would have like, no, not my fault. You know, I would have figured out a way to not feel bad about it.
You dug the grapes.
Had to have dug the grapes. That would have been tiring, you know. But no, I do feel bad about it still. And sometimes I'm like, man, it's goofy of me. What did I even tell my mom? Like, I knew I couldn't be trusted. Why did I agree? You know, but still, it's just one way to look at it.
So in complex thinking, they try to move away from shame into guilt. And so they will say, shame means you think that you are bad.
Right.
Guilt means you have done something bad. And so that is their, that is sort of their way out, so that they said, stage 2 people would say, no, we don't ever shame people.
Right.
We let the Holy Spirit produce guilt in them that is appropriate.
And the real truth is they don't have the actual language to articulate their feelings.
Yeah. And it was a shame.
Shame was literally the first step of the gospel for me growing up. And like when I first started to do ministry, it was literally like people were praying that a certain person would feel guilt for what they were doing, so that they would feel bad enough to think that Jesus was the only thing that could fix them.
Yes, that's right. So the Roman road is everyone is sinned, falls short of the glory of God. Everyone should have shame. And then Jesus swoops in and gives you grace. And you'll know stage 2 churches are all about grace. But the grace is predicated on an understanding that you have shame. Why would you need grace if there's no shame? So I remember having a conversation with a friend of mine, and he was like, and I was very much in it, and he was, so what do you do with somebody that doesn't feel bad about themselves? Is our first job to help them feel bad? And I'm like, yeah, I guess that's right. So that's the first goal, is make sure somebody feels bad about themselves in order to give them the gift of grace from Christ.
This is the most loving thing you can do, is tell someone how awful they are.
Yeah, right. That's right. That's one of those that's one of those lines of reasoning that when you're in it, you're like, oh, yeah. And after you've left that, you're like, that was stupid. Like, what were we thinking? But that's exactly what we were thinking. Yeah, and it's a line of reasoning that doesn't make sense.
Or worse, you just justify it and you would speak against it, but then your behavior said otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people did that too. They didn't even want to go there mentally because they couldn't, because they saw the pitfalls.
Yeah, right.
So they just turned a blind eye to that altogether, and then just their behavior justified that way of thinking without ever thinking of themselves, so that they wouldn't feel bad themselves for what they were doing to another human, which is even more complex.
Wow, yeah.
Because that's what I did. I never believed in people not liking themselves. I thought I always rejected the fundamental way of thinking.
Yeah.
I just was like, no, you are thinking one Bible person, you're telling me to form a whole way of thinking around it. That's bullshit.
Yeah.
That's it. I won't go there. But there were other stuff in it I loved, so I couldn't let it go. So it's like, well, I just won't talk about it. So my sin, quote unquote, was of just saying nothing.
Okay. Well, I'm just thinking through, I don't think I thought through some of the ramifications of this line that we're talking about right now.
Right.
What that means for us. You know, like, say a parent were to shame their children in order to feel the parent's love. Could all of us agree that that's a horrible idea? And yet that's exactly what I would have prescribed in my evangelical days. Is making sure people felt bad enough so that they would be able to enjoy the grace. Wow, that's really interesting.
In order for me to love you, you have to think you're not worth me loving you.
Right.
Isn't that kind of
It is definitely a
Oh,
lease.
wow. So first of all, Kristen, I'm going to say that again, and then we'll go to Maddie, and then,
It's the, in order for me to love you, you have to know that you don't deserve it.
It's the entire theology of hell.
And it's a very, like, manipulative and, like, kind of narcissistic kind of, yeah, it's a manipulation. Because I've seen so many friends whose parents have done this out of, in a way that have been like, we're not gonna teach you anything about, like, how to love yourself, how to take care of yourself, how to, like, feel, like, do the things that you yourself deserve. But it's because we want, you know, it's quote unquote because we love you so much that we're gonna do those things for you and provide those things for you. But what it does is creates like a dependency on that person. So the parent in this case is in a way manipulating their child to like need to be dependent on them forever.
well, and we certainly have done that in the church. I mean, that's the point is dependency. And so we have said that God wrecks people so that they will be dependent. And, you know, Andrew, did you have something? Oh, okay. I'm trying to think what grace would look like after stage 2. What does it mean to have grace if you're not first shamed?
The beauty for me, and the only way I can think of grace in any kind of God thought, is the fact that God meets you where you are because hard things happen to you, not because of behavior. And that's the real grace thing. Like, some months financially are just harder than others, and God's with you in that. Sometimes you get a medical diagnosis, like whenever I lost my gallbladder and I looked at them and I'm like, so what did I do wrong? That was my question to them, to cause this.
Right, yeah.
And they looked at me and they said, it was hereditary. You just had an 85-year-old man's gallbladder. Unlucky you. You didn't do anything wrong. There's no cancer in this. Just unlucky you. But the pain was unbelievable. It felt horrible. I didn't feel in my right mind. And it had nothing to do with baby. I wanted it to. Of course I wanted it to.
Sure.
But it didn't. And I think that's what grace is grace is actually for the things that you don't know you need.
Oh, that's good. Pass it back to you.
Yeah, I was just saying that grace is actually for the things you don't know you need. And I really think that that's God. God's with us in the things that we don't know we need at all. It's not even in our conscious mind.
Yeah.
Because that's the actual, if you want to call something
Right.
good, that's actually good.
Yeah, Rob.
But as for shaming, this has gone on for centuries.
It has.
I mean, let's put an A on everybody's chest or whatever. I mean, think about it. Shaming has gone on for centuries and centuries, and it will go on because it's easy to do.
Yeah. Yeah, and in fact, they define certain cultures as shame cultures.
Yeah.
It's easy to do.
Yeah.
And different cultures shame you for different things.
Let's get that back.
Sorry, it's not all the way back there. I just want to say there's even a lot of animal cultures that use shame for various reasons. I don't really have any solid examples, but there's a number of them floating around all fuzzy. You know, I think like mostly mammals, but something else just to think about.
Yeah, and I was trying to think what grace looks like for a parent with a child. Oh, how about this? What if we had grace for each other in ways of allowing each other to not be perfect?
Yeah.
Allowing each other to make mistakes, maybe that's a grace that God gives,
Well, it's doing the best we can.
right?
Whenever we just, as a society, accept that people are doing the best they can, the flaws don't carry the same weight.
Yes. Yeah, that's so true, right? And we've seen that in, there are a lot of times where somebody grew up. Of course they're going to be like that. And if you come out of a house where your parents are abusive, the chances of you becoming an abusive person are astronomically higher. That's probably not true, not astronomically, that would be thousands of percent. But are much higher than if you grew up in a loving home.
To quote the great Reliant K, the beauty of grace is that it makes life not fair.
Good.
I like that.
Yeah, they came up with a lot of good stuff.
I was just gonna say that I think grace is awareness. Like, when I was kind of trying to flip this in what I thought, it was shame is saying, how dare you? And grace is, how can you do better? And so it's just an awareness of like, seeing like maybe a harm that I've done and not saying, God, how freaking awful am I? It's, okay, how can I help the situation to make it better?
And sometimes it's simply being present. There may not be anything you can do to make a situation better, except for being present. Which is at least how I've always interpreted you as God being with us, is like, sometimes things don't get better. Like, I still had to have emergency surgery. I still had to go through 3 years of hell.
Right.
But that doesn't make God any less with me
That's right.
through those things. And that's the beauty of it. Like, that's the beautiful picture in it.
And we would say that is God's grace, is God's with us through everything. So sometimes people get cancer and die,
Yeah.
young people. And so do we say, does that mean God didn't love them?
Absolutely not.
We say, no, God was with them even in that. And God goes with us even into death.
Yeah. I think the tricky part about complexity is it will leave you in anxiety and leaves a lot of room for depressive behaviors, because at some point you can't just stay in the complexity of everything.
Right?
You have to pick something eventually, which is hard, because the real truth is, most of the time you don't know if you're right or not.
Yeah, that's right. For sure. Can we get the mic to Renee? I want to make sure I hear what that is.
5.
Okay, we were saying something about cancer. People who get cancer, they die.
Yeah.
It's 4 stages of cancer.
Tell us more.
I had cancer. I was a cancer survivor, I guess you can call it. So mine was at stage 2, stage 3 and 4. There's no flip the coin that's in. It really depends what kind of cancer you're describing about.
Yes, that's exactly right. Yeah, that's exactly right. No, there are a lot of cancers that you can be totally well from, totally recover.
Yeah.
And there are some that have lingering effects.
Yeah.
And then there are some that are terminal. Yeah, that's very true. Thank you. Many of us have been in that stage 2 environment where it goes badly. And when that one goes badly, there's almost always a crash that is significant in the person's body and heart, and that's where we'll go next week, is in that, what that stage 3 looks like. We're going to take communion now. And thank you all for going on this journey with Logan and me. None of us know where all of this is headed. We're not trying to get to stage 4 and be complete. We are on a journey together. And we want to learn from this, to be more gracious, to be able to receive God's grace, to not live in shame, and to not live in an understanding of a God that would do that would be like that to us.
It's about belonging, which is really what we do at the top of each service, and why we repeat it, is that it doesn't matter where you are on anything, that there is capacity for you to be loved where you are.
Wow, yeah, that's perfect. And that's very different than a stage 2
Correct.
pragmatism. And we are glad you're here. Like, we get to do this together. We get to figure it out together. We belong to each other. And that, as well as to ourselves.
Yeah.
In fact, you have to belong to yourself first before you belong to others. And that's what we're trying to do together as a community. So take a moment, go back, and we get the elements from back there. If you're home, you can get anything to drink, anything to eat. Here we have goldfish and gluten-free crackers. But at home, get whatever you like. And we'll come back together in just a moment and do that together. So here is God's grace. It is in this that we take together. God's grace that we have for each other. God's grace for us. It's a grace that is free and never comes from a place of shame. Thank you. Drink, which reminds us, which is Jesus saying to us, I am for you. I am the good parent, the best parent, and that is for your kid. And that's you. That's me. That's us together. Thank you. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for being here, being a part of this. Just a couple announcements. Tomorrow night at 6:30, book study. Anybody that wants to. I feel like don't we have Renee? Do you want to come up and tell us? Is that okay?
I'm sorry for postponing. There was a reason why. I don't know if you guys know that I lost my dad. So, 22, official date. You have to make your own bread. I'll make the dough. You're gonna make your own bread. And we're just gonna combine it with his birthday. He'll be 9.
Yeah, nice. Yeah.
So yeah, so I'll make the dough. And you guys
And it's Saturday, right?
Saturday. On the 22nd?
It's Navajo Indian bread, for those of you who don't know.
Where is it? Can we send out a text with the address?
Will do.
Yeah, so you guys can make your own bread.
To my case.
Thank you, Renee. And Raya, thank you for having a birthday. We'll enjoy celebrating that. So that's this Saturday, 5 o'clock, and we'll send out the address. It's in Lawrenceburg. And yeah, we get the privilege of learning some about Navajo culture and actually getting to participate in a cultural event. It's just remarkable that we get to do this on so many levels. So that Saturday.
Perhaps it's not hard to find. If we
No.
can find it, anybody can.
Yeah, and some of you even have smartphones.
They're smarter than us anyway.
Those, it's no trouble at all to find it. Any other announcements? Well, thank you everybody, and we will see you next week. Have a great week.